Hello, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. To make this bracelet, I'm going to be using two different gauge wires. So for the base wire, I'm going to be using a 20 gauge wire, which is a 0.8 millimeter. It's preferable if you can use something thicker like a 16 or an 18. But the beads that I'm using, the 20 gauge is the only one that will fit through those particular beads. And for the wrapping, I'm going to be using a 0.6 millimeter or a 22 gauge wire. And then I've got some little black onyx beads, which are faceted. And then I've got two little jump rings. I'm going to actually be making my own clasp. So I've cut a length of the base wire of 35 centimeters. And now I'm just going to take my little cloth and straighten it so that I can get the end nice and straight. And the first thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be making the little hook. Now you can use any other attachments that you want, but this is what I'm using for this particular one. So the first thing I'm going to do is go down about 3 centimeters using my pliers, and I'm just going to bend that so that I've got a bit of an angle. So we're going to be going down on the pliers. Now I don't know whether you can see, but my round nose pliers, I've marked at certain distances so that I know when I'm doing loops that I get the same size on them. So I'm going to be going on my small loop here, and I'm just going to fold it so that it lies parallel or flat with the other wire. Now when I put my wire in there, you can see you can move it quite easily in that position. So what you want to do is now take it so that it goes, you can't go any further, and then just kink it slightly so it looks something like that. Then do the same on the other side, put your pliers in, and as soon as it can't go any further, just kink it like that as well. So your tip looks like that. Then what we're going to do is taking your flat nose pliers, holding it all together. For myself personally, the wire that I'm going to be bending, I like to keep on the inside of my pliers here so that it doesn't buckle, because if you hold it on the outside like that, when you try and bend this wire, the inside wire buckles slightly. So keeping it nice and flat close together, we're now going to wrap this piece of wire around the base wire. So just lifting it up slightly, holding it in place, and then just wrap it around the wire. Take your pliers and just squash them down so that they're lying really nice and close to each other. And just keep going. When you can't go any further, just squash the end down by rolling the pliers, pinching them so that you can deburr them, and just roll it and then squash it down. Take your finger and feel that there's no sharp edges on it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take, going about halfway, just a little bit less than halfway from there, taking your round nose pliers, and I'm putting it onto my little marking so that I can see. So I've got like that, and then we're just going to bend that over all the way around like that. Then what we're going to do is I'm going to have to use 2 pairs of pliers for this, so we're going to bend just this tiny section over here up so that it makes the little hook. So just slightly bend it a wee bit, and then your hook looks like that. Now what we're going to do is at the base of the hook we're going to make an angle so that our loop lies exactly straight. So taking your pliers and just holding it in place, and then just bend the wire out like that. Now taking your round nose pliers, we're going to, I want to get a slightly bigger loop, so I'm going to be placing it just over there, and rotate your pliers so that you can get it to go completely round, so that your circle is like that. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take your flat nose pliers and hold it tight, and then you're going to wind the wire around to fill this wee gap over here. And just tighten all the wires as you go. Once you've got to a stage where you can't go any further, as you can see, I have this tiny little gap just over here where I'm going to now cut the wire, and I'm going to squash it into that small little gap. So I'm just using my bullnose pliers because they get quite nice and close, and then just cut the wire off. And once again, take the burrs off by pulling the wire as if you're rolling it, and then just squash that down, and there's no wires sticking out. So that's what your little hook looks like. And now we're going to put that aside for the time being. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little cloth again and straighten my wire, and then taking my round nose pliers, I'm going to go down about 2 centimeters, and I'm going to be marking it at exactly the same place where the other loop was. And then what we're going to do is just roll the pliers round until we can't go any further, rotate the pliers again and around, and then we've got our loop. Then holding the loop in place again, we're going to just wrap the wire around there to make a wrap loop. So just wrapping the wire, three or 4 times is good. So I've gone around, so you can see 3 times there. Then I'm going to just finish that off just a wee bit by making it go just a little bit more. And then I'm just going to trim that small piece off and then flatten it. So cutting it as close as I can get. Once again, taking your pliers and holding it and rolling the pliers so that it goes into the place that you want, and then just take the pliers and squash it down. And there it's all nice and flat. And we're going to put that one aside for the moment. So the next one I've done is now we're taking out 22 gauge wire, and I've cut 135 centimeters, which is 53 inches. So I folded the 22 gauge wire in half, and now we're going to be twisting that. So now when you hold your wire, when you're twisting it, when you put it into a drill, don't hold it flat on like this, because that means you want to try and pull it. So when you're holding the wire, hold it upright like that, so that it just twists without you pulling it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this small section and put it into the drill chuck. So now you only want to put in a few millimeters so we don't waste too much of our wire. So just putting that into the chuck so that it can hold it nice and securely. And then holding the pliers on the other side, nice and taut, just spin the drill. So once you're happy with what the wire looks like, take the drill, take it out of your chuck, and then we've got our wire completely twisted. Now we're going to take a little base wire again, and we're going to attach the wire by holding it at the bottom like that, and then leaving just a small tail. I'm just going to wrap the tail around. So when you wrap the tail, make sure that the small piece is closest to the hook, and then wrap the other one round as well. Now it's quite fiddly at this stage because everything is loose. So we've got one piece wrapped now. Now we're going to wrap it once more. So going around our wire again. So we've got on the top of our pattern, we've got two little wraps like that. And I'm just going to take my pliers and just close the gap just a little bit so that it's nice and flat. So now we're going to take our bead and thread one of the beads on. So we've got our bead in place, holding it all quite firmly now. We're going to start wrapping the bead to encase it into its position. So we're going to go around once, and then we're going to go around twice by going underneath the wire, not the base wire, just so that we're circling the bead. So that your bead looks like that. So I've gone around the bead twice. Now onto the base wire, what we're going to do is we're going to take the wire and we're going to wrap it around the base wire again. So that's one wrap. Now I like to do it at least 3 wraps, because as you can see, when you do these little circles around the stones, it's got quite a distance. So if you only do 1 wrap, when you put the bead there, you're going to come into contact with the other ones. So I put 3 wraps in the middle so that the beads are a little bit separated. So that's 2, and that's 3. And coming back to the same side that we started off at. And now we're going to add another bead. It's preferable if you can use round beads, because as you can see, the circles are not quite round. They're more like oval shaped, because the bead, as you can see, is a bit oval in comparison to a round bead, which would give you a really nice round shape. And once again, wrap this one around twice, holding the bead in place. So as you can see, because this is a bit oval, it's not quite a circle. And going around the second time. So you can see with the 3 loops in the middle, the beads are actually a little bit separated, so they're not right on top of each other. And then once again, wrap it around your base wire 3 times. 1, that's 2, and that's the 3rd one. And make sure it comes back to the same side that you were starting at. And just squash them down. Take your pliers if you haven't got them too close, and bring them in just a wee bit. So that's what the beads are looking like. So now all you have to do is continue by adding all the beads onto there, and once you've got the distance or the length that you need, I'll show you what to do next. So every time you've wrapped the bead twice and then you've gone around the shelf 3 times, or your base wire 3 times, you add another bead. So now I went to the last bead, so we're just going to be placing that one on, and then we're going to finish this side off. So just going around twice. And we're going to be finishing it off in the same way as we started it, that it's got the 2 loops at the front here and then leading on to the loop. So I'm going to close that off by putting just 2 loops on this side. So that's 1, and then 2. And now what we're going to do is we're going to make a loop on the other side. So that's what your bracelet is looking like. So now when we get to the end here, what we're going to do is we're going to take our pliers, turning our bracelet sideways, we're going to put just a few millimeters above the other wires, like that, and we're going to bend it sideways so that our loop is going to lie in the middle when we put the loop on. Now I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm going to be placing it in the same position that I had for the other loop, and then we're going to go around a full circle so that our loops are exactly the same size. And then we're going to take our pliers and hold them down, and we're going to close this small gap that we left. We're going to close that in with the base wire. So holding it firmly in place, we're going to rotate it. So that it's nice and tight. Now I like to finish on the top of the bracelet so that I don't have any sharp ends at the bottom to rub or cut anybody. So I'm going to be cutting this wire off now. So doing it as close as I can, because I've left this tiny gap just over here where I can squash that wire into. And then taking the flat nose pliers and deburring it by just bending it and rolling your pliers, and then just squashing that into place. And there we have no sharp edges to hurt anybody. Now for the wire that we used for curling around our stones, I'm going to be doing a small swirl on the top just here to continue the pattern a little bit, but obviously I'm going to be doing a lot smaller just so that I can cover the wires in case we haven't closed them off properly. So I'm going to cut this wire down and I'm going to leave about 2 centimeters. And now I'm taking my round nose pliers and I'm going to go on to my smallest little marking over there to start. Make sure that when you're turning it, that your wire is not sticking out the top, and that'll give you a really nice circle. So holding it nice and flush in there, rotate and then turn again. When you can't go any further, move the pliers back and rotate once more. Now because these are double wires, you've got to just be a little bit more careful with it, so just keep rotating it. So now I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to come in at an angle of about a 5 o'clock angle, and then I'm going to just help bend the little circle around and around. And when I get to that point, I'm going to just roll it over so that it lies on top of all those wires. So like that. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. So just do the same on the other side. So now we're just going to add the jump rings. When you're choosing a jump ring, make sure you choose one that's actually going to be fitting over your little hook, because you don't want to get one that's too small. So now, the other thing I want to point out is when you're putting the jump rings on, you need to make sure that your loops are standing upright on this side, because when you put the hook together, you've got the two hooks, the two loops that go like that, and then the jump ring goes between those, and then your hook will stay flat. So now we're just going to put the jump rings on. So to put the jump rings on, just taking your pliers, and where the opening is, we're just going to hold 2 pliers and we're just going to twist it so that it'll open just like that. And then putting that one on, and now we just have to put the little hook on. We want to try and make sure that the hook is on the upright side, so the right side. So when you put it on, it's going to be right. And then we just close up those jump rings. You can solder your jump rings. It makes it just a little bit better, but I'm not going to be soldering these ones. Just make sure that they're nicely closed. So there's the jump ring, and there's your hook on the right way around on top of the bracelet. And now just put a jump ring on the other side. So now all that's left to do is to just shape it. Now you can shape it around a mandrel, or you can shape it by just using your hands. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to band it into place by using my hands, and then attach the hook to the jump ring. And there's the bracelet completed, ready to wear. Make sure when you're putting your hook and your jump ring on that they actually are loose, hanging, dangling like that, so that it makes it just that much easier to put the bracelet on by just hooking the loose pieces together like that. That's what the bracelet looks like on. As you can see, it's sitting really nicely, and the jump ring is right for the hook. If you found this video helpful or you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Really appreciate it if you would subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.